we will be discussing the pace of population growth in Calgary. Everybody wants to live here. Now, if current trends continue, we're heading to a population of $2 million, 2 million people in a big hurry. $2 million, holy smokes. So 2 million people in a big hurry. Calgarians are feeling the impact. In our CBC poll, we found that 64% of respondents thought the city was growing too fast, and the majority of them feel it's having a negative impact on them personally. Our question, to open this up for every candidate, is how would you address the issues population growth is having on the city, and how would you pay for it? We'll begin with you, Jyoti Gondek.
Thank you. One of the reasons that we have such tremendous growth is because there's a little campaign called Alberta is Calling. People answered that call, and guess who didn't step up and fund a single thing that they should have? People moving to our city deserve to live with dignity. That means housing. And guess who's been leading the country and the province in housing? It's the City of Calgary. It's your municipal government, and not with a partnership from the province. We also need investments in healthcare and education. Those aren't coming anytime soon. Our roads need more support. That's not coming from the provincial government. So when you are $437 million in the hole every year from a partner who won't work with you, this dream of working collaboratively doesn't work. So we are fighting back to figure out how we can make sure that a province that invited all of these people here is actually going to foot the bill for it.
Thank you very much. Brian Thiessen, you are next on this one. You have a minute. Go ahead.
Yeah, I've also brought that up before, and I always say that, I would have built the housing before I did the ad campaign. But here's where we found ourselves. So we've proposed a comprehensive housing first strategy. We are focused on housing as a priority in every decision made at City Hall. We've proposed streamlining the regulatory process, so reviewing the regulations, removing red tape, and making it easier to build housing. We have a 3-3-3-1 housing policy. 3 days for a housing rental, 3 weeks for a house and townhouse, 3 months for a mid-rise, and 1 year for a large project. And if the city doesn't get its act together and they don't move at the speed of business, we approve. We need to move faster. We need to build more housing in this city. And lost in all the discussion were the neighborhoods. City Hall stopped listening to people's concerns about their neighborhoods. So we're going to introduce a process whereby neighborhoods are consulted about density in their neighborhoods. And I'll talk more about that later because I'm out of time.
We will also go to a section on zoning, and we'll come back to you in this one, Brian, but we'll focus on growth and taxation. Jeremy, you're up next. The question is, how would you address the issues population growth is having on the city, and how would you pay for it?
Well, growth is that number one issue that this mayor and council has been grossly unprepared for. Over the last 4 years, we had 300,000 brand new neighbors arrive to the city. Many of them just like my dad, who came here as a refugee and immigrant from elsewhere. My dad brought a lot of things, strengths, dreams, talents, but he didn't bring a swimming pool. He didn't bring water pipes. He didn't bring police cars. He didn't bring all of the things, the services, the infrastructure that we need to be able to succeed. And it's the fact that this council has underfunded what's important. They've ignored maintenance of key essential infrastructure like our water pipes. We're now at a point where we lose 25%. 25% of the water we produce in our water treatment plants are lost. We've been told that it's about $1 billion fix to be able to fix our pipes, yet they still had $1 billion for a new arena, of which 85% of the upfront cost is being borne by taxpayers. So we can meet the moment, we can continue to grow, but we got to spend the money that we have more wisely so that we can meet the needs of Calgarians at a street level.
Thanks very much. Sonia Sharp, you are up next. Your time starts now.
Thank you. I think what's important is, I know there was a campaign allowing more people to move to Alberta. I mean, my family moved to Canada from Italy to have a better life, and I think we can't pin people for wanting to live here. I think that's vilifying them. But what we need to do is know, again, we have a lot of land. Let's let this land go to market and let the developers build. And what people need to realize that, and to be realistic, some of the most new housing supply that's affordable are in new communities. I'll give you an example like Stonegate. They have housing adjacent to amenities, communities, and there are families living there, especially families that come here from different countries. They're multi-generational, and we want to make sure that they feel safe in neighborhoods and they have the amenities to go to. The other thing that we can talk about, that I've talked about with Communities First, is looking at some of our, unutilized transit stations and doing some seniors housing in there. Because what people aren't paying attention to, and I've mentioned to the province, you're gonna have a seniors housing crisis pretty soon because they're gonna have nowhere to live. So we need to start refocusing on what audience we're building for.
Last up on this issue of growth is Jeff Davison. Go ahead.
Well, we haven't managed growth. I mean, that's, I think, a failure of the city. At the end of the day, we've been told we have a housing crisis, we have an affordability crisis, but these are both self-inflicted. When it takes 8 years to get a building out of the ground in Calgary, we failed. We failed to manage the growth. And so thinking about things, how we do things differently, transit-oriented development, new community growth, yes, all of these things are a big piece. I'll give you a good example of how we've managed growth on the west side. As a city councillor on the west side, I put in 3 new existing neighborhood districts. So you've got Springbank Hill, West District, the project at Winsport. 3 projects that will add 55,000 residents to the west side, and we've done that inside of 6 years. Largely in part, those communities are coming together now. They're almost finished. You've got amenities, you've got mixed use, you've got affordability built in because it was led by the private sector. And the city moved the needle to move quickly because we knew the demand was there. At the end of the day, we have to change the process if we want to manage growth in a better way, and that's what we fully intend to do.
All right, thank you all for that. Now, Jeff, I'm going to stay with you here. We're going to begin our open debate on the topic of growth with a question to you. Growth has put an additional stress on infrastructure. Recent estimates put the city's infrastructure deficit at more than $7 billion. You're calling for a 4-year freeze on property taxes. How do you pull that off given the pressures the city is under?
Well, there's a couple things here. I mean, number one, Marda Loop is a great example of how we've gotten it wrong, right? We've had roads that have been dug up 3 times. Now we're going to have a 4th dig up because, the city has developed and decided more density should go there. It's predictability and planning. It's much the same we should be doing with our tax base. At the end of the day, this is a responsible way of saying we can manage growth. So let's look at how we build tax base, how we have an industrial land strategy that supports that. Calgary has 4,000 acres of available industrial land that we currently collect that much in tax base on. It's building new tax base around those communities I just spoke about. Transit-oriented development is a great idea. New community growth. All of these will build the tax base so we stop eroding the tax rate. In addition to that, we're going to manage the over $7 billion of assets we have very differently. Our investment income can be better, and that's a big way we can offset inflation, for instance, as we move forward. This is all very reasonable, right? We can adjust our risk. There is lots of things the city can do to act like a business and should.
Okay, thank you. Now, I want to get everybody in the conversation on property taxes. The proposed increase for residential property taxes in 2026 is 5.4%, responding to the notion of a tax freeze, as well as, are you comfortable with that 5.4%, or what would you do to bring that number down? We'll start with you, Sonia.
Sure. Well, the reason I'm not comfortable with the tax freeze, because it was done previously, I think it was 1992-95. And so if you're a city employee, that means you won't be getting a raise, because that's actually what will happen. They will look at finding ways to make sure that you don't get an increase to your income. Looking at the tax rate at 5.4%, I voted against it. I saw the preview to the budget, and I wasn't happy with what's in there. There were things put in there by administration where when council brought some things forward, I'll give you 2 examples. 2 community growth areas that were supposed to be in the budget weren't actually in the budget, and we're still seeing 5.4. So if we're in a housing crisis, why are we putting things in the budget that belong to administration, not us? So I'm looking for an efficient way to reduce taxes, bringing forward a finance committee that's looked at in the public, not behind doors, and making sure that senior administration brings their books quarterly to this committee so we can go line item by line item, because simple budgeting means you're hiding things.
Jyoti Gondek, I'll start first with the idea of a tax freeze proposed by Mr. Davison.
Tax freeze is an interesting concept. I mean, if you had proposed that you would do some sort of a tax adjustment in the 4th year of the budget and then planned a 4-year budget based on some new ideas, I could understand that. But you've been on council before. Doing a 4-year tax freeze is not something that's realistic. It's a nice thing to say. It's an impossible thing to deliver on. I think the biggest thing you have to do is strengthen your tax base, and we've been doing that with the downtown revitalization strategy. We have converted 11 office buildings to residential. There's 1,500 new homes that will go downtown. Those property values have increased, and that gives us a stronger tax base. And I led the charge on the strongest inland port in Canada, the Prairie Economic Gateway. By striking a joint venture with Rocky View County, we are going to deliver 30,000 jobs and $7 billion worth of economic output. That's the kind of visionary work you have to do to strengthen the tax base so that you can all have the services you need and deserve at an affordable rate.
Brian Thiessen, on the proposed tax freeze, as well as the level as it's proposed right now for next year, 5.4%.
Yeah, I just think starting out your process with a freeze is dangerously naive, frankly. Nobody anticipated the water main failure. We have to pay for emergencies like that. But I'm talking about a couple other things. The $7 billion deficit in infrastructure didn't come about magically. It came about because previous councils collected our inspection taxes, kept property tax low, and didn't maintain our infrastructure. So now that's what an infrastructure deficit means. We have to reinvest, we have to fill the potholes, we have to restore the roads, and we have to get back to the water mains. So we've proposed an actual concrete solution for that 22% of water that leaks into the ground, a water utility. Edmonton loses 5% of their treated water leaking into the ground. The reason? They move their water assets and their expertise into EPCOR, and they manage it like a professional organization owned by the city, and we're proposing that so it's funded, by the way, by fees in the future, not on your mortgage. So it reduces the cost of your house up front, and it ensures there's an organization that's actually going to be responsible for maintaining the water system.
Potholes and water main breaks are the opposite of magic, I think. Yeah. All right, Jeremy Farkas, we've got a few threads here. There's a tax freeze, but also I'm interested in how the city gets to this confronting the infrastructure deficit.
For sure, and fees in the future are still taxes. That's just taxes that aren't transparent. When I left City Council in 2021 as Vice Chair of the City of Calgary's Audit Committee, CD Howe Institute rated our financial transparency at an A-. 4 years later, we're rated at a D+. Financial responsibility has to be the #1 focus of the next mayor and council. We can't continue blowing billions of dollars on corporate welfare. We need to invest in making sure absolutely every dollar the Calgarians send to City Hall is responsibly spent. Myself as a nonprofit leader, as a CEO of a charity, I've had to make every single penny count. I've had to report to a board to ensure that we're not just spending money, but we're investing in the right things to reduce Calgarians' long-term costs. That's why I daylighted the issue of our water pipes back in 2018 with Councillor Drew Farrell. If we can attack the areas of deficiency, if we can maintain what we have, we can actually reduce the long-term costs for Calgarians. And that's the difference between simply spending money and investing.
Okay, Sonia Sharp, we're going to go to you, but I want to ask you about, we're talking about the water main now. Might as well stay there. What did we get wrong? What should be done to make sure a situation like that does not happen again in the context of infrastructure, communication with the public, trust?
On the water main break in particular, or just in general?
Yeah, why not?
Okay, well, Ward 1 was ground zero, Moness was ground zero. And when I walked down to that scene that morning and saw mothers pushing carts or baby strollers with no babies but bottled water, my heart sunk into my stomach because I just realized what was happening. You had a whole community without water, and how are we going to get them water? Your #1 job is to make sure, as a councillor, as an elected official for the city, is to have clean drinking water. And I couldn't provide that. So we were getting water to everybody. And it was a very reactive moment. More so you were trying to make sure that the traffic could flow and businesses were impacted and get going. But I do find it interesting that we still didn't see the report, and we're not going to see it till the end of the year. It's very interesting that that was changed on council. But what I have pledged is to do an infrastructure planning office where that we're looking at projects that are happening in Calgary, like water main replacement, what's happening in Mayoral Loop, and looking at projects before, during, and after to make sure there's proper oversight. And that needs to happen because it's gone. And so we need to be accountable for the water main failure and what we may have known, but things do happen, but we also have to have the money to pay for it. So back to the tax freeze, you're not going to pay for infrastructure like that.
Jody Gondek, on the timing of the report on the water main break and what you learned.
I think the biggest learning for me was that we weren't communicating quickly enough or often enough. I remember getting the message on Wednesday that this water main had broken. By Wednesday night at 10 p.m., I was told just how serious it was. I was on the phone with Premier immediately, and at 5:30 the next morning, you all got that emergency alert because it was a dire situation. I went to the site on Thursday to check it out. I talked to the experts on the ground to find out what was being done. And then I went to administration and said, let's go, let's communicate this. Calgarians need to know. They wanted to waited till Friday. They wanted to wait some more. By Saturday, I said, this is over. I will be on the airwaves tomorrow telling people everything I know so that they have peace of mind that we are actually addressing this situation. The greatest learning was that we need to communicate early and often with all of you what we know so that you can rest easy that we're dealing with it.
Going to experiment with lightning round because I want to bring this really back to growth. More people means, the need for more amenities, rec centers, libraries, parks, infrastructure that works. Is Calgary falling behind on this? And how would you meet that challenge? I'm going to give you like 20 seconds, Brian Thiessen.
Game plan is a great strategy, but it's unfunded. We need to fund it. We also need to create funding for the arts and community centers throughout this city. So we have to put the funding behind plans like that to rebuild our recreational infrastructure.
Jeff Davison?
I would just say this, don't let anybody tell you that a tax freeze is not possible just because they don't have the experience or knowledge on how to do it. Number one issue out there right now is affordability. And I'm listening to Calgarians, and I'll tell you this much, you do not create affordability by charging people more money every year. We can manage growth in a better way.
Jyoti Gondek.
While my colleagues on the stage were creating plans on how they would deal with recreation deficits, I actually brought a motion to have $20 million reinvested into community facilities, pools, splash parks, your fire halls, and that motion was actually something that wasn't supported by the Communities First candidates, even though their communities would have benefited.
Sonia Sharp.
Yeah, I'll just mention that notice of motion actually had projects in the hopper, so it was a political stunt that was brought forward for all of us to take a look at it. And some of our splash parks that we wanted weren't funded. But I will say that it's a fix it first mentality for Communities First. Fix what you have, stop throwing good money after bad, and look at game plan and make sure we can fund it accordingly.
Thank you very much. Jeremy Farkas.
Yeah, these words just ring hollow to wake up to these issues in year 12 of time on City Council or year 20 in administration. The fact is City Council has actually eroded the community amenities. They've started to sell off city parks. Every year, the Inglewood Pool, the Fakovas of the world have to fight for those investments. So we need to show up not just for the big ticket items in the downtown, but for the community amenities at the street level that Calgarians rely on.